Since you mentioned Missouri, you've talked about how that was the most brutal guerrilla warfare of the
It
conflict.
was.
And maybe can you speak to what do you mean by guerrilla warfare? What kind of war was that? And then contrast with the structure, the dynamics of battles elsewhere
Yes.
in the war.
Guerrilla war is more of what I think most Americans can sort of imagine what guerrilla war is. It involves much smaller numbers of actors, obviously, on both sides. Guerrilla bands might have a few dozen members. They might have a few hundred at different times. There are no real battles between guerrillas. There is a lot of bushwhacking, which is what they called it, ambushing people, terrorizing civilians, killing livestock, killing some civilians, killing prisoners after you've captured them, hanging some people. There are a few semi-large scale ones. There's a Confederate guerrilla named Quantrill led a raid against Lawrence, Kansas, where they burned parts of the town, executed more than 150 men in the town, and terrorized the place. That is going on there's a relationship in many places between elevation and guerrilla activity. The more mountainous or hilly, the more likely there'll be guerrillas operating. They operate in the mountains, East Tennessee, Western North Carolina, Southwestern Virginia, Central. There's even some activity in parts of Texas, but Missouri and Kentucky have the worst guerrilla warfare. It's present through the whole war, probably involves maybe 50,000 men out of the 3 million who were in action during the war, and was very nasty. No rules. One reason that rules of war were codified was because Henry Halleck, who was a Union general in Missouri, was dealing with this guerrilla activity. He said, we need to get some rules about who's a civilian, who's not a civilian. How do you deal with this kind of situation and that kind of situation?
What should we take away from the fact that most of the fighting had the rules of war behind it? So it was more structured.
I think what we take away from that supports my argument that this is a war between two mid-19th century nation states that have a sense of how you fight a war. You fight a war with national armies who are led by professional soldiers and who understand that there are limits to what you do in a war, and the war's limits expand as it goes on. But it doesn't reach the point where you have indiscriminate killing of civilians and so forth. You just don't. I mean, there's an argument about whether it's a total war or not. It all depends on how you define total war.
As you've mentioned, in terms of how encompassing it was, as total war as it gets, because the entirety of the society was involved in it.
When there's wide-scale targeting of the economic infrastructure of your opponent that can be used to support the war effort, which is what you get increasingly as the war goes on, and officially when Grant is in charge as general-in-chief, then certainly that's a total. If you're the farmer who experiences an army coming by and they take or kill all your livestock and destroy your crops, and that's pretty much like a total war, even if they don't kill you.
So the war escalates.
Yes, the war does escalate. 62, it takes a quantum leap. In the spring and early summer of 1862, the signals are clear. This is something that we had not counted on before. And the armies they're going to be much bigger. The Army of the Potomac's more than 100,000 men. There's never been an army like that in U.S. history, nothing like that.